Welcome back. Honestman here to talk about Wuthering Waves. This is a free-to-play game that just launched a couple of months ago, so now is an excellent time to jump in if you think it's something you might like. Now, because it's so new, there are a lot of content creators putting out a lot of content on this game. So where does Honestman fit in? Well, I think there's a gap in the market right now in terms of in-depth analysis of some of the characters and some of the gameplay mechanics. So that's what I'm hoping to address here. I'm going to discuss the state of play in terms of the convenes. Convenes being the rotating banners whereby you acquire new characters or new weapons. And we're looking at version 1.1 and looking ahead to version 1.2. The current version 1.1 convene features Jinhsi and her signature weapon, the Ages of Harvest. Now, I'm going to tell you up front that I'm going to mispronounce virtually every single name. I have enough trouble focusing on English. I'm not trying to learn Chinese phonetics. So I'm calling her Jinhsi. Hopefully that's close enough. Jinhsi is, by all accounts, a legitimate top-tier main DPS in the Spectro element, which is the first main damage dealer we've seen in that element to this point in the game. For that reason, thinking long-term strategic, I think pulling for Jinhsi is definitely an excellent idea, and I would strongly recommend it. The idea being that ultimately you'd want to be able to feature a main damage dealer in every element. At least that's where I'm thinking strategically. There's a lot more detail that we could go into in terms of her skill set and her moves and these sorts of things, but I think there's plenty of other places you can find that information. The one thing I will add, however, is that she's not particularly easy to master. Especially compared to some of the other characters, there's a higher learning curve on understanding her toolkit and how to get maximum value out of her. That said, I think the upside, far outweighs the downside, and I would still definitely target Jinhsi. For the featured weapon, if you don't already have a 5-star Broadblade, or have plans to target one through other means, Ages of Harvest is an excellent option that I would definitely recommend. We have crit percent as the main stat, which is, in my view, the best case scenario for a damage dealer's weapon. And in the bonuses, we have a lot of bonuses to Resident Skill damage. This plays perfectly into Jinhsi. It's not as perfect for some of the other folks who can use this weapon, but there's still some value there. And of course, there's a flat 12% attribute damage bonus, which every single user can take advantage of. In short, I would absolutely recommend and target both the character and weapon who are currently available. The next featured character who we are going to see in late July 2024 is Changli. Changli is a fire or fusion support DPS. Now, why do I say that she's a sub DPS or a support DPS? It's because her outro skill here boosts the incoming resonator, both their fusion damage and their liberation damage, for 10 seconds. So I think this very clearly articulates to us as players how she is meant to fit within a group. That's not to say that your fun is wrong if that's not how you want to play her, but I've seen a lot of people chattering in the community about, hey, she's not a sub, she's a main, and these sorts of things, and people who think they're really clever by saying, hey, just because she has this outro that does these things doesn't automatically mean she's a sub. And I think my rebuttal to that is, yes, it does. If you have a different definition of a sub DPS or a support DPS, whereby it's a character who's only focused on their own damage output, then I would challenge you to define what a main DPS is in that cosmology, because I think you've just defined a main DPS. Nevertheless, assuming we can somehow find common ground on these terms, Changli buffs her teammates. Bottom line. So, how can you take advantage of this? The surface level analysis would be, clearly you'd want to pair Encore with Changli. Encore being an unambiguous main DPS in the fusion element. Surely she's going to benefit a lot from being partnered with Changli. But that's not actually the case, and I'm going to explain why. First and foremost, Encore's liberation does not deal direct damage. So she can't really take advantage of the liberation damage bonus coming from Changli. as we can see here, it very clearly says that when she's in her liberation mode, she's powering up these other attacks, which are still considered basic damage, heavy attack damage, and resonance skill damage, respectively. So she's not actually doing quote-unquote liberation damage when she's in her liberation mode. Ironically enough, the only time Encore does liberation damage is when she uses her Forte circuit, which is her self-explosion attack. And we can see that outlined very clearly right here. This is considered liberation damage. So you might say, okay, great, so there is value with pairing her with Changli after all. Not so fast. There's a couple more problems. One is the fact that this Forte circuit attack takes a very long time. So anyone who's trying to play somewhat optimally, you're not keeping her on the field, you're switching to a different character, and then having that character attack while Encore finishes her detonate. But if we go back to the definition of Changli's outro, we can see right here, lasts for 10 seconds, or until the resonator is switched out. So if you leave the field while Encore is doing her Forte, which is her only source of liberation damage, you don't get this buff anyway. So the only scenario where Encore actually benefits from Changli's boost to liberation damage is if you keep her on the field for the entire duration of her Forte circuit. Now, if that's something that you're willing to do, to stay on the field for the entire duration of her Forte, and also squeeze that into a 10-second window, then I'll concede the point. But if you're not swapping out of her during that animation, then we're not really playing the same game. So the decision is yours. I'm just trying to lay out the facts. I think a lot of the mechanics going on here are completely counterintuitive, but I'm just the messenger. You can do with that as you will. But if you're willing to concede that Encore does not derive any meaningful benefit from Changli's liberation bonus, then all that's left here is the 20% fusion damage amplification, which isn't chopped liver. That's good. But is it good enough? Well, right here we have Changli's prime competition, in my view, when it comes to supporting Encore, and that is Sanhua. Her outro provides basic damage attack amplification of 38%, not 20%, 38%, and this is 14 seconds, not 10 seconds. And as we just saw, and I'll show it again, here in Encore's liberation mode, she's still doing basic attack damage with her basic attack. And I think a lot of sources would concur that that comprises a lot of her total damage output. Obviously, her resonance skill would not benefit from that bonus from Sanhua, but that's the trade-off we're looking at here. We're either boosting her basic damage by 38% for 14 seconds, or everything by 20% for 10 seconds. Now, I don't have the math plotted to articulate where the break-even point is between those two options, but I will assert that it's real close, and it's not completely cut and dry. And if you're willing to accept that assertion, that it's real close and not at all cut and dry and black and white as far as one being vastly superior to the other, then I think the question I would ask is, does it really make sense to pull for a featured character when literally everyone already has Sanhua? In addition to the point that she's a purple and copies can be abundant. And once we get into her final resonance here, number 6, we see that she gains an additional attack buff for everyone. So it's even more intricate. It's not as simple as 20% fusion for 10 seconds versus 38% basic for 14. It's also considering the fact that in the fullness of time, sooner than later, you're going to be able to bring this additional attack buff to bear. All of this is to say that if you're trying to engineer elemental teams where you have a legit main DPS in each element, and furthermore, if Encore is the main fusion that you're penciling in, I don't think Changli, in the current state of play, is the best support for Encore. I think we're looking at the best support for Encore right now. I think if we want to talk about what's the best pair with Changli based on the current cast of characters, this might be a hot take, no pun intended, but I think it's our shooter girl here, Chia. And look, I can understand why some people might be taken aback by that, but the game itself defines her as a main damage dealer. And I know she is actually very underrated, especially if you have her duplicates stacked up and her resonance rank. On the topic of Changli's sword, I'm seeing a lot of conflicting reports on what it even does, so I can't really comment in detail, but nothing that I'm seeing leads me to believe that it's a vastly superior value proposition compared to Emerald of Genesis. Certainly, her sword is going to be the best weapon for her, I don't have any doubt of that. I don't think it's a good enough value, though, overall. Taking a quick look ahead to version 1.2 here, information is pretty sparse, so I can't comment a lot, but I think there's enough meat to have a conversation. And this site is another site, Wuthering Lab. I'll have a link to this down in the video description. We're going to be seeing 2 new characters, a male lightning fist user. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his name. I'm going to call him Finger Blaster, which I think is an appropriate name. It's going to make sense in time. And I'm going to call her Xiangli, the girl. She is a Rectifier Glacio user. She is going to be a sub DPS. Finger Blaster is going to be a main. That's what I'm divining from the tea leaves that I'm seeing. There's a lot of buzz that everyone's going to be given a free copy of Finger Blaster, which would be great news. It remains to be 100% confirmed, but I think it's looking that way, which I think is interesting because it sort of brings up the question of what happens to Calcharo. If Finger Blaster really is a main lightning user, he sort of steps on Calcharo's feet a bit. So what's going on there? If I were to speculate, and this is pure speculation, not analysis per se, I think the developers have maybe realized that Calcharo is a little clunky. A different way of me saying that is he's got a higher skill curve than some of the other characters. When it comes to top-end play, getting the most out of Calcharo is not a trivial endeavor, as opposed to someone like Gian, as an example, who's much more user-friendly from my perspective. So I wonder aloud if maybe Finger Blaster isn't being positioned as, okay, Calcharo's great, but he's for more advanced players who kind of need a more friendly, user-friendly, easier-to-use lightning DPS. Maybe that's where their heads are at, because we already have a lightning fist user in Yanwu, and he's more of a situational support, really good with Jinhsi, with how she operates. So, again, just some speculation. I'm not really sure how they're positioning him compared to Calcharo. That said, if you're a free-to-play player like I am, and we're going to get a free copy, if that turns out to be true, then I don't think I need to dig into, should you pull for him? Almost certainly you shouldn't, because you're already going to have one, and probably the value proposition of going deeper than that doesn't make sense. Xiangli, on the other hand, I think makes a lot of sense. If we take a look at her outro, and this is a big part of why I said she's a sub DPS or support DPS, she boosts incoming resonator's resonance skill damage, amplification by 44%. This site doesn't have a duration. Hopefully it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 14, 15 seconds. Longer than that would be amazing. But this is a big boost to resonance skill damage, and the preponderance of Jinhsi's damage is resonance skill damage. In addition, Xiangli's liberation attack triggers a sequence of coordinated attacks with whoever's on field, which also plays perfectly into Jinhsi's mechanics. In other words, I don't think the developers could have possibly designed her to be a better fit for Jinhsi. I think that's the pair. This is who you want as support with Jinhsi. So I would absolutely target this character, and if you weren't fortunate enough to get Yinlin's featured weapon, then definitely target Xiangli's weapon as well. It's going to have crit damage instead of crit percent, and if you don't already have a 5-star attack-based rectifier weapon, I think it's going to be an excellent option. Similarly, Finger Blaster's weapon, his featured weapon, is going to be a fist. Not good information on what's going to be on it, but almost certainly it's going to be the best fist weapon in the game to this point. That could make a lot of sense to target as well, but a lot is going to hinge, if you're free to play, on which character comes out first. I'm seeing 2 sites giving very confident assertions that each of these characters is going to be first, and they are in direct contradiction with one another. So I don't have any idea at this point who's going to be first. If Zhezhi is first, obviously I'm putting all my resources towards that, and if I have leftovers at the end, then I would go after the fist weapon. If Finger Blaster is first, then there's no way I can risk putting anything into that weapon. I would have to just save for Zhezhi and hope for the best. So those are my thoughts on Wuthering Waves 1.1 and 1.2 convenes from the perspective of a free-to-play player trying to be very careful about where I put my resources. I definitely think Jinhsi is worth the investment, as well as her weapon if you need a broadsword. I definitely think Zhezhi is worth the investment, as well as her weapon if you need a rectifier. I definitely would skip Changli and her weapon, and skip Finger Blaster and his weapon, unless you have some resources and he ends up being second in the 1.2 release. Obviously, this all goes out the window if you are dropping a lot of money on this game. I want to be very clear that I do think Changli is an excellent character and an excellent sub-DPS. The problem is we don't really have a great main to pair her with yet. I think she would be an amazing investment in the future. I think sub-DPS in general are very future-proof. Like, there would need to be a lot of different things that would have to happen for Yinlin, Changli, or Zhezhi to suddenly become deprecated. So I think it's a safe investment there, but with limited resources, you got to pick your battles. That's going to do it for now. Even if you don't arrive at the same conclusions that I have, I hope this information has been helpful. Thank you all so much. Please like and subscribe. This has been Honestman, and I will see you next time.